The Denver Broncos must get off to a fast start this week against the Tennessee Titans, and ground control is the key. We'll highlight that and much more here on today's episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Broncos Country, the moment you've been waiting for is here. It is game week here. Welcome into another episode, Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, where you know it's your team every day. Today's episode of the show, we're going to go through it. We're going to break down the Broncos' biggest key to getting off to a fast start and why it's really ground control and how they can take advantage of the Tennessee Titans. We'll also talk about how players like Talanoa, Hufanga, and Jonathon Cooper defensively could have the biggest impact for the Broncos this week, and why the Broncos must avoid the trap of overlooking the team that had the number one overall pick last season. We'll look at all that here on today's episode of the show, brought to you by our friends over there at the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Thanks to all the everydayers out there in Broncos Country. Thanks for making us your first listen, however you choose to do so. If you're not an everydayer, become one. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter from Mile High Sports, joined as always by Sayre Bedinger, site expert over there, predominantlyorange.com. Sayre, game week is here. Broncos Country is excited about it. We are jacked up for it. The Broncos kick off on Sunday, and I tell you what, we open things up in our Monday mailbag for all the avid listeners out there in Broncos Country, and we got a really good question sent in on how the Broncos can get off to a fast start this week against Tennessee.
Yeah, I love it, Cody. I think starting fast is kind of the mantra for this team because last year, obviously, they started 0-2. And yes, that did lead to the great moment against Tampa Bay. And shout out to, there was a video made about the turning point that was that Tampa Bay game. So shout out to that video that included us in there. That was pretty cool to see. But also, Cody, I think that you want the turning point this year to not have to be something like that, to say, hey, you know, we had a dramatic turnaround after starting 0-2. The Broncos, they don't want to do that because obviously you start off the season with two AFC opponents. Those wins, regardless of the quality of the opponent, like you said, Titans got the number one pick in the draft this past year. The Colts are not expected to be very good, but at the same time, those are two AFC opponents that will count heavily towards the Broncos' ability to make it to the postseason later on in the year. So yes, getting off to a fast start is critical in terms of wins and losses, but how are they going to do it on the field? Well, I feel like really no 3 and outs, Cody, on the first drive. That's how you start fast, is you get things going offensively and you make sure that you're not in a funk right away, because that's the last thing the fans in Denver are going to want to see, right? Is to see the offense come out. The excitement is hot. I don't know if they're wearing the throwbacks for week one. That's a rumor that's out there, but man, nobody's going to want to see these guys rocking the throwbacks or whatever it is they're wearing out there and getting a 3 and out offensively to start the game. So I think that's my biggest thing on offense, to start fast. No 3 and outs. Now, does that mean you get a first down and then you punt? Absolutely not. We want to take the ball down the field and score right away.
Yes, I'm with you. Like, that's the thing. Coming out and having an opening drive touchdown to start the season at home, that there's nothing bigger than that. I wish I had the memory that our good friend Andrew Mason does, because I'm trying to remember, when's the last time the Broncos had a home game where they opened things up, marched down the field? Was it when Russell Wilson was the quarterback and it was against the Raiders week 1 a couple of years ago? I can't remember. I don't want to sell it short, but that's kind of where I'm thinking there. But I agree. Like, that's got to be the biggest thing here for the offense, because last year they were one of the teams that led the league in 3 and outs. That was a recipe for kind of disaster. And, you know, you couldn't sustain, you know, over the course of an entire game momentum. When you get the ball, you punt it, your defense is on the field for, let's say, 9 or 10 plays. Maybe they give up a field goal. Maybe they force a miss. And then all of a sudden your offense is back out there. They go another 3 and out. Your defense is still tired. So it's about being able to kind of support the other side of the ball there. I agree with you on that. I think one of the bigger keys to offensively here has to be a ground and pound run game, right? What better formula in today's NFL? And we've seen teams win Super Bowls by doing it. I think you can even make the argument the Super Bowl 50 Broncos team, their strength wasn't in the passing game necessarily. It was the ground game with Ronnie Hillman, CJ Anderson, but they also had a smothering defense, right? So for me, it's kind of on offense, a ground and pound run game here with J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, a sprinkle or two of Jaleel McLaughlin and or Tyler Bidet. We'll see what that rotation looks like in this game. And then smothering ball control defense. That is the key to getting off to a fast start here. And I say both of those sides complement one another relatively well. What do we see in the preseason for the Broncos? It was, hey, we are running the ball, dominating the time of possession, and our defense was smothering. Can that carry over here into the regular season? That's going to be one of the bigger keys here.
100%. And that's exactly what we want to see, is this complementary style of football, and what basically everybody has been saying about the Denver Broncos this offseason, and how different it was from last year, where they're the embarrassment of the league, all this dead cap, that's the focus, worst roster in the league. Now we're talking about, a lot of people are saying this might be the most balanced roster in the NFL, which is kind of a crazy difference. But go out there and prove it right? Go out there and be that balanced team. Like we talked about, you don't want to have 3 and outs offensively. Defense, it's the opposite. Get the heck off the field or get a turnover, right? Make Cam Ward's life miserable out there. We'll talk about that later on in the week when we get into keys to victory and stuff, because that's one of my favorite keys, honestly, every single week. Spoiler alert to all those out there who have never tuned in for a full season. That's one of my keys almost every week, is make the opposing quarterback's life miserable, because if you're doing that, you're more likely going to win the majority of your games, to be honest. And that's why the Broncos, they led the league in sacks last year. They end up winning 10 games. I think that's a testament right there. Getting to the quarterback matters. So get off the field quickly. I think that's obviously, to get off to a fast start, you want to see the just everything clicking right away, offensively, defensively, on special teams, whatever it may be. Shoot. And I don't know if you could get any faster of a start, Cody, than, can we see the opening kickoff taken back for a touchdown? You literally can't start faster than that, unless we don't want to see that if the Titans are taking the first kickoff. But if the Broncos are, shoot, Mims, Bidet, whoever's back there, take it to the house. That's how you really start fast.
And that would be exhilarating. And look, that right there, we talk about the momentum swing in the NFL, which is a very real thing. To be able to be at home and to march down the field, whether you're on offense, and score a touchdown there, it puts more pressure on the opposing team that's coming in. And now they have to deal with the loud noise, as we know, especially at Empower Field. It gets rocking there in the press box on third down. The stadium shakes. I'll set a water bottle down on my desk and I'll look at it as it's third down, and it's shaking. It's almost like there's an earthquake here. This is one of the better environments to be in all the National Football League. Get to a fast start here at home. And I would say too, get off to a fast start and sustain that, right? Like we've seen it in the past. Like we can go back to Sean Payton's first year against the Washington Commanders. The Broncos get off to a 21-3 lead. They get off to the fastest start you could think of, and then they collapse and completely give up that game at home to Sam Howell and company, Scary Terry. Like that was not a very good moment here. So can you flip the script a little bit? Because the Broncos' issue, as you pointed out earlier, has been getting off to fast starts. 1-5 in Sean Payton's first year. You start off 0-2 last year before you go on, you win against Tampa Bay. You go on and you win against, obviously, the New York Jets to kind of go 2-2. If Denver could just focus on getting off to a fast start, winning that first game of the season, because then you got 2 straight road games, then the schedule gets really tough. Like the toughest part of Denver's schedule has to be in this first half part of the entire schedule before their bye. So you don't want to get into a trap where you fall down behind, you can't get off to a fast start, and now you have one of the tougher uphill climbs, I think, in the NFL from a schedule standpoint. The Broncos, they got to lock in and get off to a fast start. Thank you to the question that was sent there from our good friend John over there on whether or not if the Broncos are going to start fast. What does that look like? Let us know if we missed anything here. Make sure you share your thoughts on what a fast start for the Broncos would look like here in Sunday's home opener against the Tennessee Titans. But Broncos Country coming up next. Our next mailbag question asks, who can be an impact player on the defensive side of the ball against the Tennessee Titans? We'll tell you why Jonathan Cooper and Talanoa Hufanga might be the 2 players to watch here on today's episode of the show. Today's Locked On Broncos podcast is brought to you by our friends over there at the Game Time app. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, cheering on your favorite team. But let's be honest, getting tickets to your favorite sporting events or to see your favorite team play on Sundays, it can be a challenge sometimes between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time. That's why you should use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay.
Well, and I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100, and the app makes it super simple. You can even view the exact seat view that you want to sit in before you buy. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.
Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and they are the place to be for all your NFL action this season. The NFL season is almost here. It starts up this week, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app.
Well, and I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, right? With player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. And the Broncos in this week's action, they are 7.5-point favorites over there on FanDuel, so you want to go check that out and all the other cool player props that they have that you might be interested in. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Denver Broncos defensive players got to make life miserable for rookie quarterback Cam Ward. And Cody and I have a couple of guys in mind that we feel like can really make this a special season opener defensively for the Denver Broncos. And Broncos Country, we're going to talk a little bit more about Talanoa, Hufanga, Jonathon Cooper, and maybe a couple of other guys here on today's episode. But want to say thank you once again to every single one of you for listening to Locked On Broncos, for watching on YouTube if you choose to do so. However you choose to partake in the show, we appreciate you for subscribing. Take a couple of seconds, do that wherever you listen, or on YouTube if you haven't done so already. Cody, let's talk about our favorite defensive players to, I guess, make the biggest impact. A question coming from Dennis. And I'm excited about this question because obviously the Broncos, they're expected to have one of the best defenses in the NFL. But who's going to make the biggest impact in this particular game? Because I think everybody kind of expects they're going to make life hard on the rookie quarterback. Who's going to be key to doing that? I know you and I both have our picks and we have our reasonings.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you look at it because we don't know exactly who or what Cam Ward truly looks like. We can go back and pull up the college tape of Cam Ward and see how he was. So what does that look like from the standpoint of how are you going to come in and make a rookie's life miserable? Kind of the way that Seattle did to Bo Nix last year. I mean, they threw a bunch of different looks at Bo last season, and it was creating a lot of questions early on. They sent a lot of pressure his way. They disguised their coverages really well. We know that the Broncos, they kind of fit that criteria. They will pressure a lot. They will disguise their coverages. That's a very, very important part of their identity. But which players can we expect to maybe kind of be under the microscope here? I think it would be easy for us to say, okay, hey, we're going to look at Pat Surtain. He's going to lock down their best receiver. Okay, that's great. But I think when we talk about players who I think can have an early impact in this game, whether it be a big hit, whether it be something across the middle of the field, going back and watching Cam Ward over the preseason, there was a couple throws he made across the middle that I was like, oh, that's a nice throw there from the rookie QB. So for me, I'm going to go with Talanoa Hufanga here, a guy who I think will roam around down in the box a little bit from time to time. I think he can kind of play that lurker role a little bit because the Broncos, you know that they roll their safeties. They always show a too-high shell. They'll drop guys down. They'll roll guys to the middle. Both will play over the top. I think Talanoa Hufanga, whether it be Cam Ward trying to get tricky across the middle, I think Talanoa Hufanga could come up with an interception this week, or he can deliver one of those big hits across the middle, maybe dislodges the football and allows the Broncos defense to recover it. For me, I feel like Talanoa Hufanga can be the impact player here for the Broncos defensively this week. Now, where are you going with this? Because once again, we have the luxury of saying we already know who the starting defense is. We know who the guys are going to rotate in. So there are plenty of options here that we can look at when it comes to this question from Dennis.
Yeah, I really love the pick of Talanoa Hufanga. I think what I'm most excited about for your pick there before I get into mine, Cody, is just that, you know, my favorite way to think about him is it feels like you've got 12 guys when he's out there on the field for your defense because he is everywhere all at once, right? So I'm excited to see what kind of impact he can make, but also a guy that I feel like I don't really personally talk about a ton on this show and deserves more love, at least from my end, is Jonathon Cooper. And I feel like Jonathon Cooper is one of the more underrated players on this Denver Broncos defense. Obviously hit double-digit sacks last year for the first time in his career. And, you know, we really excited about his development, his progression, the fact that he got a contract extension. But man, he is just that he's so consistent that he's one of those guys you don't really think about, all that much, because you don't worry about Jonathon Cooper. It's just like we don't always talk about Pat Surtain on this show until we get to the crossover episodes where that's everybody's focus because he's the best player on Denver's roster. But with Jonathon Cooper, he's kind of that way for us. Is like we don't talk about him a ton because you don't really ever have to worry about Jonathon Cooper. He does his job extremely well. But I think this is a game where we're going to see him just make some splash plays, Cody. I'm thinking like if we're going bold predictions already, I'm getting in bold prediction mode right now. I'm saying like 2 or 3 sacks from Jonathon Cooper in this game and having just a heyday out there. That 0 is going to live rent-free in Cam Ward's nightmares. I think Jonathon Cooper is going to have a big game.
Coop, there it is. And I'll tell you maybe something that could play out that I think will play into your prediction here or your player to watch here. Because I always think about it this way. We've seen a lot in practice, even in some of the preseason games where, we haven't seen in the preseason specifically with Drake Greenlaw, but when times at practice we've seen Drake Greenlaw on the field, there's times where it's Nick Bonito, Zach Allen, Drake Greenlaw on one side of the field. If you're an offensive coordinator, do you feel like you're going to want to run to Bonito, Zach Allen, and Drake Greenlaw's side of the field? That's where it opens things up for Jonathon Cooper to be this guy like, all right, if you guys don't want to run that way, try running my way. And I will say one thing we've seen from Coop here all throughout training camp and even in the preseason, the guy's been setting the edge like a madman. He doesn't let anybody get outside of him. He plays it very disciplined. This is something that they work on with that position group, specifically an individual period. They're always working on contain. They're always doing individual drills that have an emphasis on that. And I think that's going to be important because you also have to factor into the equation. Cam Ward as a quarterback, they could do read option with him. They could do some QB pull, quarterback counter where they pull the guard and the tackle to be able to free him up. Jonathon Cooper is the guy that I trust to demolish that, or at least what you talk about in edge contain, attack that outside shoulder, keep your outside shoulder free if you are Jonathon Cooper. Like I said, attack that outside shoulder, that offensive tackle, force everything back inside where guess what? You have help. You have Talanoa, Hufanga, Brandon Jones, Alex Singleton, Drake Greenlaw. Force it back to those guys there. And I guarantee you the Broncos will have a great chance of smothering the Titans offense. But once again, it's going to be tricky. It ain't easy, but it's just about consistency there. And I think that's a key that will make your player prediction kind of come to life a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just exactly what you said, setting the edge and really being that consistent factor in that regard, because that it kind of takes away the running game, for the Tennessee Titans potentially. And when you take away the running game for a team, you make them one-dimensional. That really plays into the Broncos' biggest strength, doesn't it? Where you can pin your ears back, you get long down in distance, you get a rookie quarterback in an environment where he can't even hear the play calls coming in, and now all of a sudden he's having to possibly go from his first to his second read. It's an overwhelming thing to even think about, much less have a quarterback be in that moment. Cody, I can't think of many rookie quarterbacks that have been able, the couple of guys who come to mind that came to Denver and like as rookies or as young players who like actually played awesome. I'm thinking of like Gardner Minshew in 2019. I think of Teddy Bridgewater back in 2015. I know Teddy wasn't a rookie in 2015, but those two guys really come to mind. I'm sure there's other young quarterbacks that have played well in Denver, but it's just tough. Early in the year, you're going up against a defense like this where you already don't want to be throwing that Pat Surtain side. Now you got Jonathon Cooper breathing down your neck. You got Hufanga lurking around. I mean, it's an exciting time for Denver Broncos fans. When you think about this defensive depth chart, the personnel, we got to the regular season healthy. And dang it, those guys are going to go out there and make some plays. And I don't want to see any of this crap that we saw in the preseason where a big play to, from Mac Jones to whoever receiver X or whoever is not even on their team probably anymore or not going to play. Get these guys out there and go make some plays and go take the ball, just like Von Miller in the Super Bowl. Go literally take the ball out of his hands. I can't wait to see what these guys are going to do.
Broncos Country, make sure you let us know which defensive player you feel like could have the biggest impact this week against Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans. We'll have you covered all week long with game preview action. Crossover Thursday returns this week. It's going to be a fun time here at the Locked On Podcast Network. But coming up next, Broncos Country, we'll tell you why the Broncos must avoid the trap of looking at the Titans like they were the number one team picking in the NFL draft last year. It is a new year, and they have a new quarterback, and that could be a game changer for them. We'll talk about that and much more here on today's episode of the show. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz with week 1 approaching. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined a league yet, now's the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or you're a veteran that's creating your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better.
With season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. Want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. Prefer the classics? Get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. No crew? No problem. Join a public league, the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl.
Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over there at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. Don't do that. That's where Monarch Money comes in handy, because it's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. And Monarch, they do the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet.
Cody, you know me, budgeting for a family with 4 kids. Obviously, we have goals. We want to take trips, all those sorts of things. Well, Monarch Money makes it simple to review all our finances with my wife, and we can both see our budgets, our goals, spending activity, all in one place. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
Sure, the Tennessee Titans picked first overall last year in the 2025 NFL draft, but as we've all seen, a year can change a lot of things, and the Denver Broncos must avoid the trap of looking at Tennessee like they were the bottom dwellers of the National Football League. And experience is something that plays into their hand this upcoming season. We'll highlight it all here on today's episode of the show. Sayre, this question comes in from Rico. He says and asks the question, what is the trap that Denver has to avoid this week? Sayre, I think it's very easy. It's easy to look at Tennessee last year, see where they're at, see that they picked first overall and that they landed Cam Ward. Right? It's easy to say, okay, hey, well, they were at the bottom of the league last year. That is the line of thinking that can always come up and haunt you to start an NFL season, particularly week 1, because as we've highlighted and we've noted here, historically, what happened last year really doesn't apply to the new year. It's any given Sunday.
100%, especially with a team like the Titans that, look, if you're Cam Ward, I know we talked about the Broncos defense kind of making life tough for him, and we do hope that they do that. But if you're Cam Ward, you're the number 1 pick in the draft. Nobody's expecting anything out of the Titans this year. I mean, literally, I've not heard anybody say, hey, the Titans could be a little bit of a sleeper. Hey, the Titans could be this year's version of the Commanders. Like, nobody is saying that stuff. So you don't even have to be in front of your home crowd. You're the number 1 pick. Nobody's expecting anything out of you. You're the biggest underdog of the week. Like we talked about, 7.5-point underdogs on FanDuel. You're playing with house money out there, man. And when a quarterback in the NFL is playing with house money, Cody, that's a dangerous deal, because then you put a lot of pressure on the other team. Like, you're forcing them to make mistakes, and I just think the Broncos need to keep the pedal to the metal in this game, because you can't overlook any team, much less a team like the Titans, that they're an experienced roster too. I think that's something that a lot of folks really don't talk about, and it's not the best attribute of their team, but yeah, they do have a lot of experienced guys. They're an older roster, which might not be good for the 5-year window, but it might be good for a 1-game window. So it's something that you definitely can't overlook.
And I also think it's a benefit to a young quarterback as well. I mean, even look at Denver last year, having an experienced roster for the most part. Of course, you had some young guys all around Bo Nix, but I mean, you look at the names and some of the veteran guys that are around, Cam Ward offensively. I think we could take a look at Tony Pollard. You look at Van Jefferson, Tyler Lockett, and Calvin Ridley is evolving a little bit more. And former Bronco Lloyd Cushenberry is going to return. But, they've made improvements to their offensive line here. they have good pieces around him. And defensively, they also have a lot of experience as well. Sebastian Joseph Day, Tavondre Sweat, obviously going into his second year. Jeffrey Simmons, we all know who he is. Arden Key, we know who he is. Cody Barton and Draymond Jones, two former Broncos with experience that are starting for them. We know who they are. Amani Hooker, Xavier Woods, and they even have Quandre Diggs at the safety positions and L'Jarius Sneed at corner. I know he's working his way back from the injury. We'll see if he plays this week in week one, but this is a team that has some good experience offensively and defensively that can maybe help you navigate the ups and downs, the highs and lows of having a rookie quarterback. To me, you know, if you're the Broncos, you want to come into this game confident. You want to come in and have the mindset, hey, he's a rookie. Let's make him look like a rookie. But you also can't overlook the fact that he is a rookie. That's the challenge of the NFL, but that's why we tune in. That's why we love it, because there is always this intrigue and this mystery. We just hope that the Broncos aren't on the receiving end of the wrong side of it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be going after the game and hearing all these other talking heads being like, wait, why were we saying that stuff about the Broncos? They just lost to the Titans. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to be having those discussions, or we don't want to be having to say like, oh, it was only one game, or, you know, oh yeah, we told you to expect this from a rookie QB. Like, obviously anything can happen in the NFL. There's no question about that. And there's a reason why they play the games. There's a reason why it's not just, well, yeah, the Broncos are more talented, so obviously give them you have to go out there and prove it. And I think for the Broncos and the fan base, it's really difficult to accept this idea that a team is good enough in Denver right now to be the biggest favorite of the entire weekend. And I think that's what scares people, is like the last 10 years, we've had no reason to believe that any team that we've had is worth, because last year, Cody, I think FanDuel had the Broncos as favorites like 2 or 3 times, or it was a ridiculously low number. So like last year, it was kind of nice being the underdog every week. Nobody's expecting anything out of you. You don't have to worry about the public perception is that you're going to be bad. So if you're bad, nobody's going to really care. But now that the public perception is that you're good, now if you're bad, everybody's going to care. And you got to go to the water cooler. You got to go to the office. You got to listen to sports talk radio. You got to wait a week between games. I just think that this is one of those situations that the Broncos cannot get into a spot where, man, they are playing on their heels.
Yeah, folks, I'm telling you, don't listen to sports talk radio. It gets your brain. Listen to the Locked On Podcast Network, local experts on the biggest stories with everything you need. And look, and surrounding all the hype around Denver this offseason, I think the hype is deserved. 100%. They're a team that's ascending. They're a team that's rising. And I think the team also understands that. But with that comes the realization you don't have it made. You haven't done anything yet. So as a team, you have to go out there and prove it. And so what does that mean this week against Tennessee? Do what you should against a team like Tennessee. That rookie quarterback. Yes, they got some veteran experience pieces around him that should help make them a little bit more competitive than maybe what we saw last year. But the Broncos, they should take care of business and do exactly what's expected of them, which, according to our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook, they are 7.5-point home favorites against the Titans, which is the biggest discrepancy this week on all the lines. So that could change. That's also some pressure-filled expectations with that as well, because now you get all these betting sites that say, well, Sean Payton is this and this against the spread when it's, a week one opener. I've already seen that stuff. I hate it. I don't like it. So go ahead, take care of business against Tennessee the way you should. Who cares about the lines? But take care of business and make Cam Ward's life a little bit miserable. Welcome him to the NFL against what is expected to be one of the top defenses in the National Football League this season. But with that said, Broncos country, that'll wrap up today's episode of the show. What is the number one trap you think the Broncos must avoid against the Tennessee Titans here this week? We'll have you covered, bringing you all the way up into game day when Denver kicks off against the Titans week 1 on Sunday. That's going to be a 2:15 p.m. Mountain Time kickoff. You get Locked On Broncos postgame coverage. But leading up to that, you get an episode every day, including the return of Crossover Thursday this week, where we'll sit across from Locked On Titans to preview this game specifically. Broncos country will have you covered with all the practice news, updates, and more, including whether or not Marvin Mims is back on the field. You can expect all that this week here on Locked On Broncos, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Broncos country, we'll see you tomorrow.